Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's event. Thank you for being with us today. It's very early morning hours in the European Parliament. Thank you all for joining us today to this event where we will be addressing how we can successfully restore our vulnerable coastal areas in a changing climate. This event is co-organized by the MEP Group on Climate Change, Biodiversity and Sustainable Development. Our chair, co-chair, Mr. González Casares, is here with us hosting the event. Thank you very much for taking the initiative and for your leadership in the European Parliament when it comes to this thematic. It's organized, of course, in close collaboration with colleagues from IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature. So I would like to wholeheartedly thank Pilar, Tommy, Zoe, and more colleagues from the European office, but also the Mediterranean office for putting this event together and ensuring that it's a very successful one. And last but not least, the event is taking place under the umbrella of the Rest Coast project, about which we'll have the chance to hear lots more as we progress. My name is Elias Grompas. I'm working as Deputy Director at EBCD, which is the European Bureau for Conservation and Development. It's an international environmental NGO dealing with ocean governance, fisheries, and aquaculture. And I'll be moderating today's discussion. I guess I always wanted to be in a band. Speaking at a microphone in the European Parliament is as close as it can get. So I'll be moderating this discussion today, where, of course, we'll be addressing coastal ecosystems. Coastal ecosystems are among the most crucial, the most productive, the most valuable, but also the most vulnerable on Earth. If we look into benefits provided by them, of course, they support livelihoods, they provide food, they play a key role when it comes to enhancing climate adaptation. They're a great hub for biodiversity, but at the same time, they're hugely threatened due to the effects of climate change, erosion, pollution, rising sea levels, and more challenges. So this event today, if we look into the broader picture, it comes at a great timing. Last year, looking into the EU policy, there was a historic step with the adoption of the Nature Restoration Regulation, setting binding targets for the restoration of degraded ecosystems, including our coastal and marine ones. This is, of course, a huge shift when we talk about the general transition from the policy vision to implementation and from aspiration to obligation. And right now, as EU member states, they are developing their national restoration plans. We stand at a very defining stage because in practice, we turn from commitments to action. So with this event, all we wanted was to raise more awareness about the topic, to generate some bigger momentum in view especially of the upcoming COP30. But of course, through the findings of the Rest Coast project, of which we'll be hearing more as we progress, we also wanted to highlight how restoration can be scaled up through policy coherence, through multi-stakeholder cooperation, but also through governance innovation. So in the next 90 minutes or a little less, we'll be hearing more about IUCN colleagues, WWF, our hosting MEP, Rest Coast Consortium and partners. We'll be hearing more about this thematic on how actually coastal restoration efforts not only enhance biodiversity, but also play a key role when it comes to climate resilience and adaptation, sustainable livelihoods for coastal communities, and more. So once again, thank you very much for being with us today. Thanks a lot to IUCN, to the Rest Coast project, and let us all take this opportunity to bridge science, policy, and practice and see how we can best support the EU to really champion nature restoration. Thank you very much for being with us today. And with no further ado, I'll pass the floor to MEP Mr. González Casares. Thank you for hosting.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Hello, thank you for being here today. It's a very important event. Sorry, I'm a little bit old than you. It's not my fault. Thank you so much. I think it's very important to speak about coastal restoration. And for me, coming from the northwest of Spain, from Galicia, our relationship with the coastal areas and taking advantage of the productivity of our ecosystems, but also preserve them is essential for our way of life. So the objective of this event, restoring our vulnerable coastal areas, should be a shared one for everybody. And this is a positive environmental action, one capable of bringing our ecosystem back to levels that ensure they continue providing the essential ecosystem services, then adopting economic development and the way of life in vast coastal areas and regions of Europe. I know this sounds naive, but this should not be a matter of debate, of controversy. Why? Because as one of the studies carried out under the West Coast project rightly pointed out, around 2/3 of the EU gross value added has a high to medium dependency on nature. Unfortunately, we know that reality tells a different history. The adoption of the nature restoration law made by my colleague here in the parliament, my friend Cesar Luena, became politicized to an irrational extent. And it is to be expected that its implementation with national restoration plans due by mid next year will be a bumpy road. Still, I remain hopeful as public representative. Our goal should be to foster informed discussions, draw on the best available scientific knowledge and advice, and provide predictability to citizens, business, without setting environmental protection and socioeconomic progress against each other. Because one cannot exist without other. As I mentioned before, someone from Galicia, as me, Europe's leading fishing region, where 76 out of 83 branches of its economy are linked to the maritime and fisheries sector. This could not be more evident. Our seas are a source of life, biodiversity, and of course, prosperity. And the obligation to restore our coastal ecosystems, it is an opportunity to secure the future of these communities through positive action that tackles, for example, the land-based sources of pollution, strengthening their viability. Because honestly, what is the alternative? To allow our coastal ecosystems to deteriorate even further, making activities such as fishing and aquaculture impossible? To adopt no strategy for combating or adapting to climate change? To abandon the thousands and thousands of workers who depend on coastal ecosystems for their livelihoods? No one can seriously deny the urgency to act in light of the devastation caused by the year's wildfires or the hundreds of deaths from last year floods in the Valencian region. If we are even slightly honest with ourselves without entering into any ideological debate, it becomes clear, crystal clear, that the most cost-efficient way to confront this reality is through nature-based solutions. So the national restoration plans represent an opportunity to start turning this into reality by working hand in hand with the communities most affected, by engaging in a genuine dialogue about problems and possible solutions, by listening and responding to the concerns of the neighbors of the places, by building consensus and sharing ownership of the measures proposed, by standing alongside those sectors most directly exposed, supporting them in this transition towards an ecological and sustainable model of development. I hope that the speakers today, their contributions help to shed light on this important discussion. But let me remind a very important thing that is happening in Europe in this moment. We have the European Green Deal. We have to defend the European Green Deal. It's our only sustainable growth strategy for this century, the only way possible to tackle the climate crisis and the biodiversity crisis. So please fight, stay on the track of the European Green Deal. Don't let others to step back. It's our responsibility, me as politician, but it's a shared responsibility with the whole society. We have to stand up and say very clear that we defend the European Green Deal and all the goals of this European Green Deal, because also the nature restoration law is a very big, important part of this sustainable growth strategy. Thank you very much, and good morning, and enjoy all the presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Member of the European Parliament, Mr. González Casares, for highlighting the importance, but also the timely nature of today's discussion of this event on coastal ecosystems restoration, putting all the puzzle pieces together as you mentioned, in a genuine dialogue with those most affected, and more than anything, towards an ecological but also a sustainable model. Thank you very much for making this point. Our next speaker is Mr. Gabor Figetski, Senior Program Manager at IUCN European Regional Office, who will be setting the scene with regards to the co-benefits of ecosystem restoration.
Thank you very much, Elias. It's a great pleasure to be here with you. Honorable members of the European Parliament, dear guests, I'm really happy to give this speech at this event today, where we talk about coastal restoration, which is key also for climate mitigation and climate adaptation. And we will see from today's presentations how it is key for that. I also want to underline what our friend Elias has also done. So the timeliness of this event, because countries are just about to gather in Belém for another ambitious COP30 to actually advance the climate agenda. And although we know very well that the world is not the same as it used to be, like when the Paris Agreement was adopted, but still we have to keep our ambition if we want to achieve the 1.5% degree goal. And I think we also need to remember that our best ally in that fight is actually nature. So without healthy ecosystems, we won't ever reach that goal. And here in this context, I think it's also important to underline the leading role of the European Union. And we have to make sure that this leading role globally will remain. And this is an event which is meant to underpin this leading role. This leading role is also shown by the adoption of the nature restoration regulation. As we all know, this was quite a contentious process, but actually it happened, and now countries agreed to set their nature restoration plans in place, which is quite an ambitious thing to have if you look at let's say global political agendas. So without wanting to go too much into the the details of the regulation. I just want to mention a few things that are in there. So the long-term and sustained recovery of biodiversity and resilience ecosystems across the member states, land and sea areas through the restoration of degraded ecosystems, achieving the Union's overarching objectives concerning climate change, enhancing food security, and meeting the Union's international commitments. So it's all there in the nature restoration regulation. And again, just to underline that this shows that the European Union really wants to walk the talk. Now that we are moving into the implementation phase, maybe we can also talk a little bit about how we want to run that process. And we as IUCN very much want to support the countries in this implementation, because we really think we have been there from the start, and we really think that this is a key process to meet the goals of the EU biodiversity strategy. So we are directly supporting 4 countries, actually, of the European Union in putting together their nature restoration plans. And we, as a science-based organization, also offer our tools and our methodologies, like, for example, the Rome methodology, also the Red List of Species, and the IUCN Global Standard on nature-based solutions. So obviously, this cannot happen without an all-of-society approach. So we also need to remember to have proper stakeholder involvement processes in all of the countries, but also European-wide to be successful. And I think we also need to remember to involve the most vulnerable groups, women, youth, indigenous peoples in the process. Talking about today's event, we will focus our attention on coastal and marine ecosystems, and particularly blue carbon ecosystems like wetlands and seagrasses, because they have a significant potential to contribute to climate change mitigation and adaptation. And just to underpin this, I want to mention two interesting pieces of data. So these coastal vegetal habitats are estimated to sequester annually around 0.84 gigatons of CO2, which is somewhat comparable to that of terrestrial forest ecosystems. So their importance is really huge for, let's say, the survival of humanity. And the wetlands deliver up to $39 trillion in benefits to people each year, supporting food security, regulating floods, storing carbon, and purifying water, just to name a few of these benefits. Unfortunately, what we see if you look at the NDCs, the nationally determined contributions, in many cases, this is very much underrated and under-recognized in these. So I think this is why it is key that we have such projects which underpin the importance of these ecosystems. And this is what we do in the West Coast project, where we conducted an analysis showing how there are varying degrees of integration of coastal ecosystem restorations. And we also shed light on the challenges that can be encountered, like, for example, limited funding for biodiversity, and also sometimes limited emphasis on ecosystems-based approaches. So these projects, like the West Coast one, are really key, and I think it's very important that there is funding for such projects in the future, because they demonstrate that restored coastal ecosystems provide multiple benefits, including carbon sequestration, coastal protection, biodiversity conservation, and core benefits like improving water quality, supporting fisheries, or fostering sustainable economic activities, just like Mr. Caceres also underlined. So I think we can conclude that nature restoration is a triple win for people, for the planet, and for our economy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gabor, for setting the scene, also for highlighting all key work of IUCN towards this direction when it comes to this matter and coastal and marine ecosystems, but also all the reasons why and how nature restoration is a triple win for people, planet, and prosperity, well, the economy and society. Thank you very much for making this case, and seamlessly we'll be moving on with the presentation by Ivan Kathares, Deputy Coordinator of the Rest Coast Project on upscaling coastal restoration in Europe.
Okay, so there's a little screen here that I can see. Are we having the presentation? Okay. Okay, hi everyone. I'm here representing a large group of people that has been doing research for the last 3 years, but we have quite a large background, so that's our business, do research and trying to get information. As Gabor was suggesting, coastal ecosystems are really relevant because they do a large number of tons of carbon sequestration, but they are compared to what happens in natural or in land environments, the difference in sea conditions are amazing. So what happens in land environments that usually when the forests grow and they grow the leaves and they grow the trees, then in time they will die. And when they die, they decay. And all this CO2 that has been sequestered, most of it will return to the atmosphere. But what happens in sea, it's absolutely different. So most of this carbon gets sequestered. It gets pumped up under the earth, and it does not go back to the atmosphere. So that's really relevant. That's one of the huge differences between ecosystems in land environments and in marine environments, that most of this CO2 gets there and it's not being removed. Actually, all the oil and and gas that we are burning, it's the gas and oil that was sequestered or that was pumped down in the earth during in all these marshes and wetlands in the era of the dinosaurs. So that's one of the good things of these environments, that moreover they are rich and they provide us a lot of food and water quality, and they purify and they maintain our ecosystems. At the same time, they are able to help us managing all these problems that we have right now. Anyway, we are here to speak about the Rest Coast project. This is a large project in which we have several objectives. As you can see here, some of these projects are to adapt the coastal restoration that we are using, trying to use a concept that was developed by the Dutch guys, the nature-based solution concept. This concept is quite interesting because it's let's try to mimic what nature is doing, and let's do our restoration mimicking nature, because nature has been performing and has been increasing and doing it better in the last 3,000 million years. And then by mimicking what nature has been developing and what has been providing to us, we can better improve the coastal restoration and the restoration that we are trying to improve after damaging it. So one of the key concepts of the project is a nature-based solution. The other thing is, how can we upscale restoration? Because it's good to do restoration in one little area like the Ebro Delta or like the Venice Lagoon, but that's not enough. We need to be able to upscale that restoration and to be able to bring it to larger areas and to be able to deploy it and quantify how much of the benefit we are providing to the ecosystems by the work that we are doing. It's really important to be able to quantify what we are doing, because at the end, what the people will understand, it's how much and the quantification of the effort that we are doing, the money that we're spending, and the benefit that we are getting from that. So that's one of the other key points that we have tried to develop during this Rest Coast project. It's a large project. It's 38 partners, 11 countries, which is a nightmare to manage. It's 170 people in the distribution list. It's an absolute nightmare, but despite that, it's quite good because it joins together people which have absolutely different fields. There's people from governments, there's people from hands-on restoration, there's people from finance, and there's people from how can we reach the society? Because at the end, we need to understand that it's a common effort. If we do not join together all the different branches, I can do really well in doing a hands-on restoration and measuring and quantifying, but if I'm not able to properly affect the governments of the countries and the way in which we do this restoration, my effort will be limited. And if I'm not able to maintain economically, financially, this coastal restoration and produce an upscaling, my effort will be limited. So we need to join together all these different disciplines. And to be honest, most of them are far away from my expertise. It's far away from what I do daily, but I need them in order to produce an impact. And that's what we are hoping to. So let me first explain that there's different work packages. Go to the next one, please. Okay, it's slow. Okay, there are different work packages. In one of the work packages, the one which I'm more interested because that's my field of knowledge, it's the hands-on. So what we have done really to do this coastal restoration, then we have tried to measure it and see how that can be applied to other places. But there's other people that manage with numerical modeling in which we try to see if we do that this way and we get this benefit in this environment, what would happen if we do that restoration in another different environment? So that's not easy to do. That's not easy to accomplish, but it's one of our duties to see which other scenarios we could get and then try to analyze it and try to get the most of the money that we're investing in this coastal restoration. There's obviously a work package on finances, a work package on governance, and other on dissemination. Let's go for the next one, please. One of the most important things that we have done is the hands-on restoration, which means that we have been doing actions at different pilot sites. And this hands-on restoration has been selected, trying to get the most possible of what we have in Europe. We have tackled the Wadden Sea, which is an environment in which the Netherlands and Germany are playing together, also with the Danish. And it's a wide area in which we have studied the Ems-Dollar, trying to understand the connectivity between the river and the sea. We have had two cases in Italy, the Venice Lagoon and some Sicily lagoons, in which we have tried to understand how we can improve those ecosystems in these lagoon environments, which are close to real anthropogenic areas and places with high population and pressure population. We also have a Vistula Lagoon where we have created we have not created, let me put it right. The rescue money, just seeding money. So some of these projects are worth around 20, 30, 40 million euros. Some of these, and we do not get this kind of money from Europe. But what we have got from Europe has helped us to monitor, help to produce some of these pilot cases, and in other cases, just being able to explain society what are the benefits and demonstrate which are the following and the measure that we need to do in order to replicate that and upscale that. So the Vistula Lagoon is a creation of an area of an artificial island, which is huge. It's 1 times 2 kilometers, and which is going to provide a sanctuary for birds in all this area, not just in the island, in all the entire lagoon. The Forest Bay, we are replanting Posidonia. In the Arcachon, we are reducing the velocity of some areas, trying to foster the natural growth of Zostera, of an algae. Well, it's not an algae, it's really a plant. But anyway, so we have different kind of environments in which we are studying how we can improve this coastal restoration. And more of that, finally, we have a global case in we have tried to study what would happen if some of these coastal restorations that we have studied would be applied wildly to all the worldwide. And then trying to understand which could be the benefits or which could be the drawbacks of these coastal restoration processes at worldwide scale. Just to show you an example, I'm going to show obviously the example of my place, the Ebro Delta, because I'm from Barcelona. And then in the Ebro Delta, what we have done, it's one of the 3 actions that we have done in the Ebro Delta. It's some years ago, the Spanish government wisely decided to buy some of this land, and then they just create a lagoon where it used to be you can see all the squares, all the parcels, all these are field rises. field rises are nice. They are able to rise field in this area. But what we decided, or what the government decided, it was important to maintain this lagoon as a natural place because it's a really interesting ecosystem. First, for all the blue carbon ecosystem benefits that it produces, but also for all the other habitat, bird species and birds nesting when traveling from South Africa to the north of Europe. And therefore, they bought this area and they renaturalized this lagoon. And what we have created within this project is we have helped to buy another piece of area, and we are naturalizing, please, if you can advance, and we are creating a buffer area in the beach connecting the sea and the lagoon in order to increase the buffer area, allowing the sea to have more space and the beach to have more space to develop, and then to have more area in which the sediment can move and the water will be able to go in the lagoon and out of the lagoon. So create an hydraulic connection, which is necessary for these lagoons, which are breakish lagoons, and therefore they need salt water. Just go another one. Okay, this is one of the area in which we are doing it's dismantling all these rice fields and creating a buffer area in which the sun will be able to move, but also there will be hydraulic connections in between the sea and the lagoons, allowing the water to be clearly permeable, and this more salty water will create more brackish water inside and will alter the ecosystems inside because it's not the same kind of ecosystem that it creates when we have more fresh water coming from the river or more salty water coming from the sea. So it will be a more natural environment. But let me go, if you can jump to the next one, please. Thanks. Let me go to what really matters here, what is more important and we want to convey to you. It's all the information that we have created about governance and how can we help the policy to restore our ecosystems. One of the main works that we have done 3 policy briefs, well, 4 policy briefs, 3 within the project and another 4 working with the Green Deal projects. And then we have created a set of deliverables. And these deliverables are for you to read. I mean, these deliverables are internal deliverables of the project, but these are for the people that will really manage and will really help us to improve or to create better laws in order to, and better governance in order to improve the restoration that we are promoting. So these are the 3 policy briefs that we have created. The first one was obviously about the natural restoration regulation because the perfect timing of our project starting when we learn about the natural restoration law that was going to be promoted. And then here we are doing a briefing of what does that mean? How can we use the natural restoration regulation in order to improve coastal restoration? Second one is about the NDCs. It's about how can we use coastal restoration to be applied on the NDCs, because it's usually skipped that part in all the policies and the different governments, and we will see now that in the next deliverable. And the third policy brief that we have done, it's about the connectivity, because we try to think or we try to isolate things because humans, we need to put the things into boxes in order to understand what's happening in that box. But nature does not think that way. In nature, the water flows through the river and then it will reach to the sea and then it will go away and it will come back. And all this water will move nutrients, will move pollutants, will move sediment, and therefore there's a clear connectivity in between the environments. Even if we want to put things on a box because we need to put that on that way in our brain in order to understand it, nature does not go that way. And therefore we need to understand that there's a clear connectivity in between the different ecosystems, and we need to evaluate the ecosystems not in a village, not in an area, instead in the ecosystem in which that things that we want to study are happening, which means all the area of influence of the topic that we are studying. Let's go to the next one. Okay, nice. This is the policy contribution. We are not the only Green Deal project that was supported by the European Union. There are 3 other more projects which I encourage you to take a look. There is Superb, there is Merlin, there is Waterlands, and there is our ones, which is Rescost. And each of these projects is focusing in one of environment. So there is one project which is ours working with coastal connectivity, but there are also other projects working with water bodies and also working with forest. So this is a policy brief that we did together, trying to understand or trying to explain how we can engage stakeholders in order to improve the nature restoration. But let me go to the 3 deliverables that I want to explain to you about, which is deliverables 5.4, 5.5, and 5.6. Numbers are not relevant. What is relevant is the context. Please take a look to these deliverables. If you want to understand these deliverables, please email us. We will digest them for you and we will then give them to you. And if you don't want to do that, you just put them on ChatGPT and ask them of the summary of the deliverable. And then once you have the summary, you can see if it's really relevant for you or not. Some of these deliverables are not yet because these are the outputs of our project. But it's relevant that you take a look and spend like 20 minutes on looking at them because there's some really good information within. Okay, the first deliverable is the report about the NDCs, and it's clearly showing how the blue carbon ecosystems are underrated and under-evaluated in all the NDCs and NECPs on the different countries. At the down at the right, you can see all this area here. It's the area of the general ecosystem, and this is the general coastal ecosystem. All what is in red means it's bad. And bad means that they are not evaluated at all. And you can see these are the lines for the different countries. And most of the countries, they do not take into account the blue carbon ecosystems on the NDCs, which is really a shame because they are more effective than not the goods. I'm sorry to state that, but that's what science tells us. So we should be taking more into account the blue carbon ecosystems because they are more effective, they are easier to protect, we still have them intact in some cases, and they are quite easy to produce laws that will help to reinforce the really huge work that they do. And the policy and this deliverable speak about that, and it speaks about how can we, at the national level, explore the options to restore these coastal ecosystems and to include them on the NDCs that every country has to produce. If you go to the next one, please. This is a country-specific recommendations. So here, UCN, that has been the one that has done all the, led all the work package on governance and policy and have done a great job when going to all the hands-on places in which we were doing the restoration. They have gone and they have studied what we have done, what were the barriers to produce this coastal restoration, and which were the enablers that will allow us to do that better. And therefore, they have done a report for country-specific recommendations, speaking about what we have done at each pilot site, what could have been done better, and which are the governments and laws that could be or should be changed at national and international level. And this one deals with national recommendations. And then if we go to the next one, obviously there's some recommendations and outputs from that. If you go to the next one, yeah, thanks. In the next slide, we will see which are some of the recommendations that are recommendations as strategic plans, as capacity, how we have to teach our technical advisor, our technical staff about what natural-based solutions are, how we have to implement them, or how we need to monitor all these outputs and how we have to standardize the outputs, because it's really relevant that the people understand and we are able to convey to all the audience what we are doing and which is the profit that we are getting. And if we go for the final one, because I don't want to bore you anymore, this is the kind of international recommendations that the UCN has provided when analyzing first the pilot hands-on restoration that we have done, the restrictions that we have at every country in order to produce this coastal restoration and improve the benefits of these blue carbon ecosystems, and then how the laws and which should be changed and how could it be changed in order and governance in order to improve national and international coastal restoration. And therefore there's a set of recommendations. I would like to highlight just two of them because it's already late. First one is to include the regional action plan. So regional action plan should not be limited to one village, one city, or one area. It should be include all the wide basin impact, because as I've stated before, there's a large connectivity and we cannot just stick at one point. And finally, let me include the point number 5, which is the embedding coastal natural-based solution, because natural-based solutions are a reality. They work. We have clear report and science, and we can prove that they work and which are the outputs, and they can be upscaled quite easily. So once we have seen how they work in one area, we should be able to do that and promote them in other areas quite cost effectively. So it's something that we should study more, and we should start promoting that more in governance at every country.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cáceres, for presenting us with the Rest Coast project vision, but also with highlighting its key objectives on scaling adaptation via restoration, the key importance of nature-based solutions towards this direction, reducing risk, decarbonizing, and using, among others, a systemic approach. Thank you also for presenting us how it all looked in practice, but also moving from theory and vision to practice to the deliverables, and last but not least, to such key policy recommendations for policymakers also present in this room. Next on, looking into the events agenda, we're running a few minutes late, but we've got lots of time as we progress for the Q&A discussion. Just a reminder of this point, if you have some questions for our excellent set of speakers, please feel free to develop these, and we'll take as many as the time will allow us later on in the Q&A discussion moderated by Mr. Tommaso De Mozzi. Prior to that, we have some reactions from a couple of speakers on synergies between restoration and climate objectives in the EU, starting with Mr. Jacob Armstrong, Ocean Policy Manager at WWF European Policy Office. Thank you for being with us. And I believe you also have some slides. Okay, perfect.
Yes, thank you very much for the invite. So hi everyone, my name is Jacob Armstrong. I'm from WWF. I work in the European office, but today I'll be presenting a little bit kind of all our work on these issues about ocean action and climate action, how they kind of fit together, and what needs to be done at European level, because we're actually in a really good space at European level, because we just need to push it forward. So if we just go to the next slide, I think the first thing to say is that we've heard a lot about how important marine habitats are, but the reality is there is danger. Okay, so there's a couple of things here just to pick out from an IPCC report a couple of years ago, which looked at the state of the ocean. And it says a lot of things we know already, that the ocean is responsible for a lot of the heat absorption. So global warming, the ocean is doing a lot of work in terms of bringing that heat in, but that leads to things like coral bleaching and to species shifting, to changes throughout the ocean. And we saw a couple of weeks ago that we've actually reached a tipping point into the state of our coral reefs. Okay, so we are doing a lot of damage. But there, and you get lots of things like extreme weather events. You know, every week there's another event. The storm surges in Jamaica just last week. Marine heat waves in the Mediterranean are a massive, massive issue and causing unknown damage to marine species there. Ocean acidification is something else. And this all leads to things like less food supply for us and for marine habitats. But also this affects the blue carbon ecosystems. And a lot of what we're talking about this morning is being affected by all of these changes. So if we go to the next slide, I think the really important thing to say is obviously there is a massive interlink between the marine habitats and people as well. And this is part of the reason this is so important, is because this is fundamental for so many communities. About 40% of the world's population lives near to the sea, and a huge amount of people are possibly affected by sea level rise. And a huge amount of these people, about 3 billion people actually, rely on wild caught seafood. Okay, so when we talk about communities, this isn't just something that's nice for what's happening in the sea, it's happening for people as well. And this is something really throughout the world to take into account. So we go to the next slide. There's a huge amount of reasons why kind of coastal restoration, why ocean protection is actually really, really important for us. Carbon sequestration has been said, And I'll just kind of run through these because they are just, there's so many different reasons why this is important, which is useful to say. Carbon sequestration is really important. And when we look at different types of marine habitats and blue carbon ecosystems, you see the actual power, which has kind of been mentioned, in how effective they are in absorbing carbon, which is really a resource that we need to tap into that hasn't been done so far. Buffering ocean acidification as well. Blue marine habitats are good for this. So the more they get damaged, the less we can kind of buffer this ocean acidification. Coastal protection is also incredibly important. Again, as more storm surges happen in Jamaica, Valencia, these types of things, more marine habitats close to the sea, close to the coasts will protect our communities as well, which is something else when we talk about climate change adaptation as well. This is something we need to consider and needs to be taken in by policy makers. Global food targets is another thing. Fish is an important source of food. And if we stop overfishing, stop destructive fishing, then we will be able to rely on it more, but more and more communities, coastal communities, because of the lack of these habitats, ecosystems are more precarious. Biodiversity is obviously there, and then lots of things like job creation and economic benefits, which more and more we're talking about. I think the European Commission has done quite a lot of work in the nature restoration regulation to kind of quantify and put numbers on how much kind of nature restoration might be adding in terms of economic benefits. But at the moment, it seems to stay quite theoretical. And as we move, this really needs to be reminded to national policymakers so they actually really do prioritize these kind of projects. So moving to the next slide is just a couple of different examples of marine habitats and kind of what they do for us. Maybe if you just click the next one as well, just we can go through quite quickly. So mangroves is something super important. Salt marshes, we're talking a little bit about today when we see them go. But there's other ones as well, seagrasses, kelp forests. Kelp forest incredibly successful at sequestering carbon, build very, very quickly. And I think one thing to say is carbon sequestration is very important. We also need to remember all of these marine habitats, which we can do a role in building and improving. They're also really, really key for marine biodiversity. And that's also another way you get these kind of impacts more and more, because then you get more marine species in the ocean, you get more building, and then you get kind of knock-on effects there as well. So yeah, I'll keep on going. I think, yeah, I mean, what we do at WWF, we do have kind of a principles for how to look at ocean action with climate action. I think our main points are really that we really need to, here's examples of some of the habitats. So for WWF, ocean action, climate action, super important. The context of COP next week is very, very, very important. We need to look at the linkages between the two. Raising ambition in both sectors is really key because you do have those co-benefits. Making nature a key part of the solution. We talked about nature-based solutions. It's absolutely key. We cannot rely on technology to do these things. Also, just because it's not as effective, nature is there for reasons. The more we can allow this to happen, the better. And just, there we go. The third thing we need to do is put people at the center. I've talked a lot about communities. But I think when we look at marine protected areas, the work that we do, the projects that we have at WWF, the most successful ones are the ones that have community engagement from the beginning. And it takes a long time to talk to those coastal communities, to talk to, for example, fishers, to get them involved, to get them to take ownership. But once you do that, then you get incredibly successful projects and everyone kind of benefits. And so really, the last thing is to join up the climate and ocean agendas, finance agendas, which is happening more at COP, but again, something we need to push more and more. So I think the last thing I wanted to go through is basically just very simply, okay, we're here today, we're in Brussels. What can the EU, do about this kind of global issue? And I think this is why at the beginning I said we're in actually a really nice position in the EU because there is a lot of opportunity. Okay, the European Commission announced this Ocean Act a couple of months ago, and that's a real opportunity to make some of these things happen. Okay, the first thing the European Commission should do is put this 30 by 30 marine protected areas target into law. If it's done at European level, then it means the member states actually have to do it, and then we get a good harmonized standard, and we can make marine protection truly effective. Connectivity has been spoken before, and this is something really important to think about when we think about maritime spatial planning, about what's happening in the ocean. because it's not only just about having marine protected areas, it's about making sure they're connected, making sure they take account of what habitats, what species are in each sea, and make sure each one is protected enough. Taking into account warming seas is something super, super important for maritime spatial planning and things like the Ocean Act going forward, because with warming seas, this means that habitats are changing, species are moving where they are. So this can be taken into account. And we've pushed the idea of dynamic MPAs so that you have a supplementary kind of thing, MPAs that take into account these kind of changes and can look forward. And so you don't just get dead MPAs in certain places. I'll move on to the second thing, which is blue carbon strategy. I think this is just something to note, which could be successful going forward if it is effective and not just kind of words on paper. Which is that the European Commission has announced that they will do a blue carbon strategy, and they've talked about this in the context of coastal communities. And this is incredibly important about getting these rural communities, these coastal communities. I mentioned fishers as well, getting them on board in the Green Deal, in the green transition. Helping them by getting them to take advantages of blue carbon ecosystems, whether that be through tourism, through economic opportunities like fishing or else. So that's really important. We need to build scientific knowledge on blue carbon as well, and understand their role for climate and biodiversity. But of course, we also need to be clear that we shouldn't make this just an economic argument. We shouldn't be kind of trading blue carbon ecosystems. We need to really value them for what they are, but to allow, nonetheless, their kind of financial support. And the final thing, which is I think one of the most important things we're speaking about today, is nature restoration law is a real landmark piece of legislation. The member states, European countries, have to put in their plans for nature restoration law by September next year. So again, massive opportunity. But of course, there's risks here. Lots of member states we already see are delayed and are not going to give in on time. And also, the question is, are they actually going to give good plans, and are they going to support them financially and through state planning, for example, through maritime spatial planning? So this is something that we will need to go back to the member states and get the Commission to push as well. And the key thing, which is kind of right at the bottom there, is that it is quite simple. I think this was mentioned by the last speaker. It is quite simple for marine habitats. The main thing is to reduce human pressures. That means very simply banning things like destructive fishing activities, providing a transition, obviously, for the fishers that do rely on those activities. But as soon as you start to kind of to let the ecosystem restore itself, then you really see kind of all of these massive benefits that we've talked about come to life. So that's it from me. Happy to listen to the last kind of interventions, and thank you very much for the invite.
Thank you very much, Jacob, for highlighting why and how ocean action is climate action, and why we cannot do one without the other. On why it all matters, why the ocean is key for people on the planet, and how such a global issue is impacting us, and actually what the EU can do about it through nature restoration, through the blue carbon strategy, but also moving from the Ocean Pact to the Ocean Act. So thank you very much for making these points across. Our next speaker is Ms. Claire Boudi, Senior Officer at IUCN. Thank you very much for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. So I'm really glad to be here today. So I'm Claire Boudi. I work as Nature Restoration Senior Officer at IUCN Euro Office. I'm based in Brussels, and I'm really glad to present you today one of the key projects we are implementing in the nature restoration team. So thanks for the opportunity to present this today. You can go to the next slide. So we are currently supporting, as Gabor already mentioned it, some member states in the drafting of their nature restoration plans. So we are doing that with Croatia, the Netherlands, Poland, and here I will present you the work that we are doing with France. The project started 1 year ago, a bit more than 1 year ago, and it will last until February 2026. And it is funded via a technical support instrument, which is an instrument funded via SG Reform, which is a directorate of the Commission, of the European Commission. And basically, We are aiming to support the French Ministry of Ecological Transition on 3 major topics. The first one is to provide recommendations on restoration measures that have benefits in terms of climate change mitigation and adaptation, but also in terms of biodiversity restoration. The second topic is we are trying to provide estimates of costs of implementation for restoration measures in order also to showcase the low-hanging fruits. And finally, we provide recommendation on funding options. So after this short presentation of the project, let me deep dive into what are the main challenges and recommendations in terms of coastal restoration. So in terms of challenges, this has been previously mentioned quite a few times by the previous speakers, but as you all know, there are a lot of pressures happening on coastal ecosystems. To name a few, in France, there is a big issue with urban sprawling in the coastal areas, maritime trade and port infrastructure. And there is also a lot of issues happening with coastal erosion. For instance, in the Mediterranean area, in the eastern part of the Mediterranean sea coast, there is a lot of, the coastal area is highly urbanized. And today they are facing a lot of issues with the sea level rise. So they need to take actions. And most of the time we can see that what they are doing is rather implementing coastal defenses than really implementing green infrastructures. So here this is a major issue. And besides, we also know that coastal ecosystems in good condition are key to face climate change threats. So this has also been previously mentioned sorry, by the previous speakers. So they help fight sea level rise, erosion, and they also store high amount of carbon. And what we can see in France is that there is still a lot of studies that need to be conducted in terms of carbon sequestration to better understand how they are storing carbon. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Thanks. So yeah, so those are the challenges. Okay, so we are still on the first slide. It's okay. And in terms of recommendations, so in terms of restoration measures, we are inviting the French Ministry to first preserve the natural coastal ecosystem that are still in good condition, even though there are a few. And secondly, we invite them to restore the damaged ecosystems and implement as much as possible adaptive and flexible coastal ecosystem management in order to give back the ecosystem their natural shapes. And finally, we also invite them to restore connectivity between those ecosystems and to ensure that the restored sites are well connected between one another to ensure connectivity of species. And secondly, in terms of costs, it is not an easy task to estimate how much it will cost. We already have some very interesting case studies from the various projects that have been funded in France. For instance, the West Coast is an interesting one. There's also the Life Adapto and Life Adapto Plus project, which is super key in France because it has more than 10 pilot sites throughout the coastal area in France. And what we can see is that there is a proven efficiency in most cases of nature-based solution, and it is also cost efficient compared to gray infrastructure. So this is really important to highlight that to planners and also to try to put together the data to showcase those multiple co-benefits of nature-based solution. And finally, in terms of funding, so in France, the coastal areas are managed by the local authorities. So it is really important to raise their awareness about natural green infrastructure and to show them that it is more efficient to invest in those infrastructure than in traditional gray infrastructure. So this is one of the levers to be activated for the implementation of the nature restoration plan in France. And finally, final words, the IUCN message, which is based on some IUCN resolution, which are voted by the IUCN members. I've put a few on the slide, but basically IUCN invites local authorities and planners to promote coastal resilience by providing tools for anticipatory coastal planning and nature-based adaptation. And secondly, they also invite planners to support adaptive planning to climate change and early decision-making, always taking into account the precautionary approach and ensuring long-term monitoring of the footprint of maritime activities. So this is it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'm here to respond to any question.
Thank you very much, Claire. I guess it just goes to show that internet connection will tear us apart. Thank you for this presentation, for highlighting more details about IUCN's work, this additional project, but also how it all connects the dots and supports the nature restoration regulation implementation. As we have a few more time for the Q&A session and closing remarks, we're well into the second half of the event, but I would suggest before we move on to the Q&A discussion that we take a 5-minute break or a little less, just to move around the room to connect in an informal manner to network, and let's take it from there in 5 minutes or a little less with this short break. So as we're reaching as we get closer to the end of the event, I'd just like to pass the floor to Mr. Tommaso Damozzi, Biodiversity Policy Officer at the IUCN European Regional Office, for moderating this Q&A discussion to follow, leading us to the closing remarks and the takeaways of this discussion today at the European Parliament. Tommaso, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Ilias, and sorry for interrupting the breakfast. I hope you have enough coffee. So yeah, we wanted to have a Q&A session open to all of you. So it's gonna look a bit like a wedding, but if you have a question, just raise your hand and I'll go around with the mic. Any first takers? And if you can introduce yourself.
I'm Evelyn Meinders from the province of Groningen. I'm a stakeholder manager at the Amstel Estuary. And like Yvonne already told in his presentation, we need an increased connectivity to the estuary and a dynamic system. But at this point, the Nature 2000 laws in the Netherlands are quite in boxes. So if we want to improve the system at this point, it's quite impossible due to the Nature 2000 law, how we interpreted it as in the Netherlands. But we thought maybe the nature restoration law could be a good opportunity to look more at a system approach instead of boxes. But I'm kind of curious, is that a way to go with the nature restoration law, or because that will help, and it will help restore our coastal area.
Any takers from the speaker on how the nature restoration law has like more of a global understanding? Maybe Jacob, you can have like a go at it, not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, hi. So thank you. So I think, so I don't know exactly the case of the Netherlands, but I think the point is exactly the nature restoration law can be a way forward. The other thing I think to say is that in all of these issues, you know, whether you're talking about COP or you're talking about any of these kind of restoration issues, this issue of competence between ministries, essentially, and kind of, okay, yeah, this article one competence is often an issue, and this is exactly where member states and governments, where possible, need to be very clear and say the lead is on this ministry and kind of give that authority. So I think nature restoration law can do that, and exactly, it's about getting all the stakeholders together, making sure you are looking you use these plans to do as much as you can to get as much people on board and to get as much clarity for the years going forward, give the support. And yeah, I mean, I think I'll leave it there, but exactly, nature restoration law can be the way forward. One thing also is that there's maybe the S word here in Brussels is simplification, which should not be a synonym for weakening environmental legislation, but there is potentially a way forward in terms of harmonizing reporting. And so we do hear a lot you've got lots of acronyms, lots of different environmental legislation at EU level, MSFD, Marine Strategy Framework Directive, MSP with Maritime Spatial Planning, which I've talked about. there is sometimes issues for member states because the reporting is slightly different. And there is a job to do to kind of make it a one-stop shop, make it all these templates for data reports, put them together, deadlines at the same time. Maybe that can be another way as well to bring everything together and to make the process a little bit easier. So maybe that's also a way forward, for the future. Thank you.
Great, Jacob. I just wanted to add that, this is not just an opportunity that the NRPs provide, but it's actually the reality, particularly for the Netherlands. Because this is one of the countries that we are supporting through our projects. And what we see there is that there is a lot of resources invested really into a proper stakeholder involvement process. And also they want to look at various administrative levels, so not just national, but also going to the regions and have proper stakeholder consultations for really bringing the sectors, but also the levels of administration together. So in the Netherlands, I think the Netherlands is really a forerunner in this respect. So it's reality, really. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm François de Keulener, representing a marine contractor, DEME, head of nature-based solutions, also co-founder and chairman of a foundation called Ecosystem Restoration Communities, and here also representing a partner in RESTCOS. We are here in Venice, restoring marshes in the Venice Lagoon. Currently, nature restoration initiatives are faced with the short-term political agenda. So the fact that nature delivers on the long term is good, but it's not really considered by politicians because it's not delivering in their political agenda. Thanks to the Green Deal, we now have this beautiful nature restoration regulation. My question is, how is this effectively going to change the valuation of nature? And how is the financial flow towards nature restoration effectively going to happen? Because still today it's not 100% clear because of the issue of the short-term political agenda.
Thank you. Any takers? Maybe RESTCOS project had some work on financing and Ivan can highlight it. Of course, there's the new EU budget that's being discussed in this building and going forward. So that will be a take on that. But Ivan.
You're absolutely right that coastal restoration takes some time. But I want to stress what Jacob was suggesting before. It's quite clear that if you let the nature if you reduce the stresses of nature and you reduce the stresses of ecosystem and you reduce what it's damaging and not allowing nature to evolve naturally, you will automatically get an output. And some of the times these answers are quite fast. In some of the cases, they will not happen that fast and they will not even start until you reduce the stress. The main point is to find these stresses and to be able to protect it. It's clear that timing in political or timing in governance for the different countries and the timings for nature do not match. But what I can see from the natural restoration regulation, at least what I've seen and what Pilar has told us about all the good things that will have, is that at least now it's written what the governments have to do. And now they have the NDCs and now they have the natural restoration plans. And now at least it will be written. And I hope that next time all that will include, I know it's not right now, but I hope that for next time, all these natural restoration plans will start to be pinpointing all the coastal ecosystems. And then once that happens, and we start having some outputs of these natural restoration actions that we are already doing, then we will be able to promote them in order to be included as in the natural restoration plans so they can be properly evaluated. But it's clear that right now it's not clear how that is going to happen. At least it's written that they have to, that the governments have to do all these 20% restoration for 2030 and then beyond that up to 50. But it's not clear how that is going to be and what it's and it's not including coastal ecosystems. But we hope that in time, natural restoration plans will include them because they will see that promoting them is cheaper than not in land bases. and encouraging this coastal restoration. It's more effective, more benefit and cost effective than not other ecosystems. So I hope that in time that will happen. But you're right, timing is not matching right now.
Thanks. Maybe just to add on Ivan just said, in terms of funding, I would say that as we all know, there are a lot of budgetary constraints right now at the European and national level. One key level would be to redirect the harmful subsidies, both at national but also local levels. For me, this would be one of the key points, and we really need the governments to commit to that. For instance, there are a lot of harmful subsidies in terms of fisheries. At the local level, there is also a need to redirect the fund from grey infrastructure to green infrastructure. So for me, this is a key aspect to look at.
Well, it's a big responsibility to be the last. I'm Laura Puertolas from Aviren. We are partners in ResCoast, and I'm also a member of the Biodiv Restore Knowledge Hub from Biodiversa Plus that we are also engaging with member states and with all the scientific community to promote the implementation of nature restoration law. And just to emphasize that we, for instance, had a meeting with member state representatives last May in the French Ministry of Environment. And many of the challenges that they were highlighting, from financial, economical aspects, governance and technical things, are also related with many of the learnings that ResCoast project can bring, and that the work done by IUCN, WWF, and all the people that were sharing this with us are really providing this knowledge. So my question was a little in line, how do you feel that this transference between what we can generate as scientific community and how we can reach really the member state representatives, and how we can improve a change in policy, or to try to promote the integration of different policies, all these challenges that we have on the table, not only in the nature restoration law, but also how we can inspire in other types of policies that could be potentially aligned with restoration in the next decades to optimize this. How do you think that we can increment the impact of the learnings that we had in these projects with activities like that, or other things that can be done? Thanks.
Thank you, Val. One answer will be the events like today. That's one way to do it. Maybe Gabor, or Ivan, whoever wants to take it.
Yeah, just a few thoughts on this. So from a practical point of view, what we have seen so far, countries take sometimes very different approaches to putting together the plan, with a different level of ambition, I have to say. I mean, the opportunity is there because this is how it was designed. It is supposed to bring together the sectors. It is supposed to be based on a wide stakeholder involvement process. And it is actually the time when ministries are supposed to work together. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I think these sorts of pieces of legislation are the ones that can pave the way towards policies that are like this, and not just focusing on a single sector. I think this is how we can move out of our boxes, and I think that in this respect, it's very much a progressive piece of legislation.
One of the things that I've learned with ResCoast is that doing a real good dissemination of what you have done and the outputs, and showing with proper metrics to the society that this works, it's a good beginning, because then what happens is that you include other communities, as Jacob was suggesting, and if you have the support of the community from the beginning, the rate of success of the action that you are going to do, of the coastal restoration or the restoration that you are going to do, it's much more high, because then the society is involved, believes in what you are doing, and it's more easy to reach, do, and transmit the message for the next one. So I think that one of the key points is to transfer all the knowledge that we are gathering on the actions that we are doing, disseminate this information properly done. That's one of the marvelous things of the Dutch guys, that they do really, because it's a national project for them, the coastal maintenance. Well, actually, it's a matter of survival for them because they live undersea. So they do a really good effort and dissemination of the actions that they do, explaining the budget, but also the consequences and the benefits that they get. So if you are able to transfer this message to society and they learn about that, they will be demanding similar solutions for their problems, and therefore that will help to upscale the process of the restoration actions.
Thank you so much. I think we need to close because they're going to kick us out. I'm sorry. So without further ado, I'll leave the floor to my colleague, Marin Pilar, Marine and Coastal Officer from our office, the Center for Mediterranean Cooperation in Malaga, to close this event.
Okay, so as we come to the end of the session today, I would like first to sincerely thank to our host, to Mr. Casares and his team, for hosting the event. Also, thanks to all the speakers, also to our participants for your engagement. We have not too much time for discussion, but it's the real life, no? The timing that we have for this kind of events. Also, thanks, special thanks to Ilias and the EBDC team and the MEP group on climate change and biodiversity and sustainable development for the support for organizing this event. And of course, to the IUCN team for the availability and dedication to prepare this event. Delving into today's discussion, I believe that we have reaffirmed both the urgency and the opportunity that we have to restore vulnerable coastal ecosystems and oceans, to face the climate change risk, and also even highlighted that using the NDCs as a strategic tool, as our vehicle to deliver the targets of the Paris Agreement is a good opportunity for all of us. Regarding Rest Coast, Rest Coast is an Horizon 2020 project. It's a scientific project, also part of the Green Deal Plastic that Ivan mentioned this morning as well. But it's not only about science. It's a collective effort to scale up a natural-based solution, as Claire and Gabor mentioned, also to build resilience. But it's also contributing to strengthen the policy framework by bringing key recommendations to the table. We have also seen that restoration can be a powerful tool for adaptation, for biodiversity and climate mitigation. But beyond that, we have also heard how policy, science, and community must go hand in hand, as mentioned by Mr. Casares, to make this transformation possible. Today here in Brussels, it's 6th of November, and we will be raising almost 16 degrees today. Every day we hear in the news that this kind of flooding events, extreme raining events every day. So ahead of the climate COP next week in Brazil, we would like with this event to ensure that coastal restoration and ocean restoration is or become the cornerstone of the European climate agenda, to restore and to conserve the nature. So please allow me to close the event with two key messages. Let's carry forward this momentum from today, because it's a key momentum, given the COP ahead next week. And the second one is let's continue to work together across sectors, across different disciplines, across borders. We have a case working between the Netherlands and Germany, and also beyond Europe. Why not? And walk the talk, as Gabor said. Lastly, just on behalf of the IUCN Center for Mediterranean Cooperation and the IUCN European Regional Office, thanks once again for coming, for being with us, for your time, and your insights and your commitment today. Thank you very much. So I believe we have just a few minutes to enjoy the coffee and talk a bit, and that's all. Thank you very much.